So when I started in ministry, well, my first ministry, I was basically birthed to death, and was like the associate youth pastor, if you will, which was great. And I'm so thankful for that church and that they allowed me to even cut my teeth in ministry. But I knew, and my wife knew, that I wanted to be a children's pastor. I used to work in a before and after school program. I've coached kids, been around kids. I mean, you learn a lot from kids. But one of the things that you realize immediately in children's ministry is you need a ton of volunteers. And people are coming and going all the time. Before I get into this, let me say, we need more men serving in children's ministry. You probably heard me say that before. More men. Not the tech guy, not the communion guy, not men serving in children's ministry, small group leaders, sitting on the ground with kids, having a lesson, whatever. You got to have a lot of volunteers. And so you kind of go into survival mode. I served in a church in Iowa, and they had 4 services. For elementary, K through 5, I said, can you send me the Excel sheet of all the volunteers so I can start contacting them? For 4 services, they had 6 volunteers. That meant there was a service or 2 where there were no volunteers. So in the beginning, I just took everybody, and I had learned this through the years. I had served in other churches where I had to build teams and build volunteers and volunteer teams and put people in leadership and who goes where and who's a good fit with this age group and all those things. And as I pour into these teams and pour into these volunteers, you identify leaders of leaders. And I call them team leaders. So essentially, they would be over an hour, or they would be over a wing, depending on how the layout is of your church. So I have a team leader upstairs, I have a team leader downstairs, I have a team leader over here, and this is a person that's responsible for their schedule. They have their volunteers, they have their, a team leader might have a kindergarten, first and second grade small group leaders, or check-in leader, whatever. So everybody had a spot, and then I could communicate with them more quickly. I would often tell the team leaders, and I would also tell the volunteers, it is Shark Week. You need to go out and you need to find more volunteers. I wouldn't say it that way like it was their responsibility, but I would charge them, look for people who you believe you would like to serve with. Maybe this is a person that has sat in your row time and time again in worship. Maybe it's someone that you keep sitting near during small group, or a guy that came to your men's group, or someone that you served in this capacity with. And I'd be like, you guys can reach people that I'm never going to come across. And the more we talked about that, the more they bought into it. One of the things that I used to tell them is never say somebody's no for them. So in the early days of recruiting, I would be a little intimidated, like, I don't know if I should ask that guy or not. Boy, I don't know, man, he's going to laugh at me. He's not going to want to do this. He's not going to. And sometimes they'd be like, no. They just, no. Or I would see an older person think, well, I've heard so many times from older people, they've already done their time, so I don't want to ask them. I remember a dad tell me one time, I feel like you're making me feel guilty that I'm a dad, that I should serve in children's. I'm like, well, it's your kid, but I'm just trying to, I'm trying to get the right people there. But don't say somebody's no for them. And what we found, 2 things. We found, one, there were more people receptive of being asked by volunteers or team leaders, maybe than they were from the pastor himself. There was something about that lady in small group that looked over at her and said, you would be a great fit for the 9:30 service. Here's what we do, here's what I do, I love it, here's the kids, whatever. And they would go, okay, yeah, nobody's ever asked me to do that. Or you know what, I thought about that and I wasn't really sure where to start, so I just waited till they maybe came and asked me personally. So you found more people that would say yes, because at one point I even said, let's just keep track of who says no, just to get an idea. We didn't have to do that very long. The second thing I found out was the quality of the volunteer went up when they were personally asked by another volunteer. So you go out and you're in your small group, or you're in this ministry, or in this open gym with some guys, or you're in this men's breakfast, whatever, and you find the courage to ask that guy, hey man, I serve in children's ministry. You ever want to come back there and volunteer with us? I don't know. And if he would, or if she would, or if they would, sometimes we get a whole family by doing this, the quality went up. because it was a personal invitation. It wasn't like a top 10 need in a bulletin. They go, all right, I can do that one. If you put out the sweeping statement, we just need bodies back there, we just need people back there, that's what you're going to get. And it's not going to be good. People who can influence other people, people who are leaders of leaders, they want to be asked. A lot of them are not going to force their way in. Some of them will. You know, the more nurturing people will go, hey, do you guys need help back here? And what I found as the children's pastor, because there was so much going on the entire time, I rarely had time, especially in bigger churches, where I could get out and recruit anybody. And if I was recruiting them, there was a high probability I really didn't know them. But the person in my ministry who was like the third grade small group leader knew them well, because every Wednesday they were in small group together, or in Sunday school, or you knew them. You got to know them. And as a team lead or whatever, you started looking for people. Who do I want to serve with? Who do I want to put in this role or this position? I say that because the same thing holds true when it comes to being a witness for Jesus. Never say somebody's no for them. There are many people out there who are just waiting to be asked. They think they are good. They think they need a church. They think they know God. Maybe not a lick about Jesus or the Bible or whatever. They're just waiting to be asked. And as a pastor, if you go out and you ask the person that you coach with at the ball field, or you are with at, you know, the grocery store or at work or whatever, almost always the caliber of that individual goes up because they've had a relational investment. Oftentimes we try to get people just to get to church, and then it's your pastor's job somehow through the pulpit and through wooing them at the door to convince them that they should be here more. And what if you discipled them? What if you recruited them? What if you evangelized them? What if you bought them some coffee? And you bring someone who is new to your church in, and you say, I've been pouring into this individual for 3 months, Pastor. It got to the point where I said, now it's time for you to find a church. It would change his whole demeanor. I would love to serve at a church where people are like, we're going out every week and we're looking for people, the lost sheep. We're looking for people who just need the invitation. We're looking for people that we've been praying for and we didn't even know who they were. I'm looking for people who I just need to ask them, do you know Jesus? Do you want to come to church? You want to be a part of my men's group, you know, small group, whatever? It would change. I'll go back to that. The invitation flipped the script. It changed the image in our mind. And before long, instead of walking around going, well, nobody wants to serve back here, we realized they do. They just need to be asked. They just need to be invited. And when they were invited, the sustainability went up. The caliber actually goes up because you now had a relational investment. It works in children's ministry. I think it'll work in evangelism. Just a thought. I'll talk to you in a bit.